Chapter 2.
I'm Erik Cargill.
And I'm Rachel Elnar, and this is Cheers and Tears.
Design leadership tales retold.
Erik, if you don't know about Josh, our guest is a true bridge builder between entrepreneurship, design education, and the design community. And for over 30 years, he's been helping people discover their purpose and connecting talented designers with incredible opportunities. As a founder of People Work Partners, he brings a human-centered approach to recruiting and leadership coaching, placing emerging leaders in companies like Netflix, Target, and OpenAI. He's also been a trusted consultant for design teams, shaping critique, culture, and operations for trailblazing organizations like Sequoia Design Lab. From leading the MDes program at California College of Arts to running Schwa Design, a lean design business recognized by the Wall Street Journal, his career has been a masterclass in inspiring, educating, and championing the design world. Beyond his incredible work, he is fueled by curiosity, connection, and very long bike rides. Give a warm welcome to Josh Silverman.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome,
Thank you.
Josh. Nice
Likewise.
to meet you.
Thank you.
I can't always remember how far back our friendship goes to, but we kind of like talking about the beginnings, how we started, why we have this shared love of community and leadership. So can you tell us a little bit more about like your leadership role within AIGA, which chapters, how long you served, and how you got involved?
Absolutely. Thank you for making this space to tell these stories, because that's one of the legacies that I think is leaving us quickly. There's no one organizational body. There's no backbone of the design community anymore. So I feel like it's up to us to preserve these stories and be the ancestors that we need in the design community. So I really appreciate your making the time and inviting me to share my story and a little bit about how, to your very kind introduction, how all those things sort of make sense to me. I'm gonna go back to the very, very beginning. Pre-AIGA logo in a square rebrand. That's how long I've known the organization. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised. And I remember seeing AIGA in New York. I was in New York a lot. I remember that's probably really cool. It wasn't until I got I don't think I ever went to any AIGA New York events, but I heard of them. And I do remember receiving a postcard to join when I graduated undergrad in 1994. I probably joined in 95 as a guest, probably the New York chapter. And it wasn't until I got to Boston, where I moved in fall 95, that I had missed a lecture by Vaughn Oliver, one of my design heroes. I missed a lecture by one day. And I was like, I love this guy so much. And I love V23 and I loved all the 4AD music that Vaughn Oliver was putting out. It was part of my formative years, my formative oral years, the soundscape of my life, if you will. And I reached out to Fritz Kletke from Visual Dialogue, who ultimately became a mentor and hired me for some freelance work down the road. I first reached out to Fritz because I saw his name on the poster for Vaughn Oliver's lecture. And I said, hey, did anyone record on VHS tape? Did anyone record Vaughn Oliver's lecture? And Fritz said, no, but that's a good idea. Maybe you'd like to reach out to the membership team and offer that. And it was a very smart shift of what AIGA how AIGA worked really well for many decades was like, if you want to get involved and you have an idea, AIGA is a great platform to do so. So that was the very first welcome into the Boston chapter. It was 1995. I didn't end up recording any videographing any events, but I was membership chair for 6 years. And that was 3 years longer than most other membership chairs. I'm a pretty good greeter. Like, I remember welcoming people at events and remembering people's names. after timing out as membership chair, the Boston board was like, what do we do with you? You still want to get involved, but like, how do we keep you on? And so I remember sitting with the president at the time, Amy Strauch, and we came up with a new title called Community Membership Director, co-creating the next phase of my AIGA career with them. And that opened up the idea of what community could be for me. My brother was living in Burlington, Vermont at the time. And I looked at the Bone Show, the Best of New England regional awards show, through a different lens. And I thought, my brother, who's a photographer, maybe there's an opportunity to bring the Bone Show, the Best of New England, BONE. What if we bring the best of New England outside of Boston to the rest of New England? Hey, there's an idea. So I put it in the trunk of my car. I drove it to Burlington. I drove it to Portland, Maine. I drove it to UConn stores because I had friends and faculty there and ended up hiring some students who graduated there. I drove it to Providence, Rhode Island because RISD, because creative communities all over. And then I think the Boston chapter got a little angry with me because I was stealing their members away from other regional places, and I was like, no, like let's zoom out and play a bigger, more infinite game. Bringing the Bone Show out of Boston to the rest of New England influenced, let's say, the formation of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 other chapters, including the Rhode Island chapter that I helped co-found and ultimately became president of. So I've had, so to answer your question, I was in the membership and then community, whatever for Boston for many years, maybe like 8 years. And then I was co-president, I was VP of Rhode Island, president of Rhode Island, and then I helped the president who took over after me for a couple of years. So that was the chapter level, I should say. All the while, like going to leadership retreats, meeting you, Rachel, at a leadership retreat at some point, meeting people that I still keep in touch with in random ass places across the US because that's where the leadership retreats were. Like, I don't know that I would have gone to Cleveland or Omaha or wherever had it not been for some of the retreats. So I feel very grateful that I have friends all over the country because of that. In 2012, when Doug Powell was president, he reached out to me and said, would you like to get involved in the centennial? The planning started in 2012 for the 100th anniversary of AIGA. And I said, absolutely. Like, there was not a question in my mind that I wanted to be involved in the planning, the strategy, the execution, the coalescing, the more than regional conversations about what it would take to represent the organization at its centennial. And that was an incredible honor, and I love how it came out. I love how it turned out. I love that it was me and Michael Lejeune and Anne Willoughby. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Ooh, sorry, Anne.
We needed a buzzer there. I think Erik and I should have had a buzzer to see who won that one, because it was just like kind of tied.
Around that time, I was in Kansas City, so I knew Anne. So yeah.
So Michael, Anne, and I were the 3 co-chairs, and it was an amazing conversation to be part of. And I love how every chapter participated, and that there was a role for me to reach out to more of the local leaders at that time. And it was a great result. I think that, like, honoring the legacy of the organization was probably the pinnacle of my AIGA achievement, I think.
Incredible.
Yeah.
We've been to cities that we've never been to. Like, I was thinking, why would I ever go to Omaha, Nebraska? But now it's like one of my favorite places, right? Just great memories that have been created there and still sit there with me. Relationships that we fostered there that continue to
Yes.
this day.
And I think
crazy.
that's absolutely the most untapped value of any organization, especially an organization for designers who are, most of us, natural born networkers, most of us who want to be in community, most of us who want to connect with people for whatever reason, if it's creative or strategic or tactical or some support mechanism. I think the fact that AIGA was the backbone of the design community for so long um, uh, is missing in our lives right now. And I think this is a super timely conversation because I have thoughts about where the design community is now. Like where is it physically? Where is the center mentally, emotionally? Is there a center? Yeah, I have thoughts.
Tell you the truth, the nature of our industry has changed so much. Fast forward in social media and phones, which we didn't have back then. I mean, I was telling Erik and Amanda, we only had Sharpies to communicate where the parties were. So there you go. There's the Sharpies. Nice,
Yep.
exactly. So much has changed in terms of what we've done. Our sponsors used to be paper companies, used to be print companies. They're gone now, or don't have the
They've
revenue
changed
they used
form.
to. The whole industry has changed form. So honestly, I don't know if there can be a single backbone.
I think that's okay. AIGA was a distributed organization, so it wasn't like distributed thinking was foreign. I don't know if this is on the agenda, but I think the boat was missed for becoming a bigger tent, becoming a bigger organization that was inclusive of motion designers, interaction designers, UX, UI, like engineers. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Engineers are designers. Engineers have to think in a designerly fashion. And I don't know that engineers have a similar kind of organization. I bet that they may crave community in much of the same way designers do. What would it be like if there was an AIA, AIGA conversation, or IXDA, RIP, would have played well with AIGA? That may have felt radical to some people. That may have felt like a radical, oh, no, we can't fuck with what's working. But are we not an organization of creativity at its heart?
Right. Yeah.
Were we not something that could be more innovative than we allowed ourselves to be, even structurally? Like I loved the business model of AIGA, having been part of two different chapters on the inside in terms of revenue and, you know, signing the paperwork and all that. Like I saw what the financials were, and it's not just AIGA that has fallen from relevancy, like a lot of other organizations that are not keeping up with the demand for different kinds of connectivity. So it feels like a missed opportunity, and it's still necessary.
Do you remember when your first leadership retreat was?
Phoenix 97.
Oh.
Phoenix 97.
97. I was really grateful that it might have been 98, but I'm pretty sure it was 97. I was really grateful that I went with a couple other folks from the Boston board. I remember a couple of things, one of which was meeting Samina Qureshi, who Shepherd Qureshi Associates was an architecture and design / placemaking firm in Fort Point in Boston. When I met Samina in Phoenix, one of the co-founders, Samina said, "Oh, you're in Boston? Why don't you come by and show us your portfolio and we'll talk?" And I was like, abso-fucking-lutely. Like I was super excited to have met her after her conversation in the plenary session about the spirit of design. And I was like, I like you. I like what you have to say. You seem really cool. And I went up to her and she said, "Come by." So I was really excited for that invitation. So that's one of the things that I met. And I ended up working in Shepherd Qureshi Associates for about a year and a half. The other thing that I remember from Phoenix was one of the banners, one of the AIGA banners had a foot mark and not an apostrophe. It wasn't a smart quote. So I remember standing up and saying, what's up with that? Are we not designers? Like, can we pay a little bit more attention to those details? And Mark English was like, yeah. Mark saw that I was capable of critiquing, the system. And Mark was particularly appreciative of my my offering to the group. And that was it. Like, I was hooked. It was super great to be in the people who had been awarded the gift to go to the leadership retreat. It was looked at as like a special thing because the chapter supported you. It didn't come out of your pocket. The chapter paid for you to go network at a different level and meet different people. And I don't know how many leadership retreats I went to, maybe 7 or 8, but let's say it was the 7th that I don't know if you remember this, Rachel, or if you were there, or Erik, if you were there, but like, we had a Myers-Briggs facilitator that year. And he was like, who are the extroverts? Who are the introverts? Who are the ambiverts? He separated all 200-ish of us by our Myers-Briggs type indicators. And I was with Debbie Millman in all 4 quadrants. Like, each of the things, we were just like following each other, and I was like, you again. But at one point the facilitator was like, okay, what frustrates you? Just shout it out. And I said lines, like waiting in line. And Debbie turned back, she's like, Josh. And I was like, yeah, sorry, native New Yorker, hate waiting in line. And that's when we became friends, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
That was Omaha, 2008.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I do remember. I think it was one of the better managed sessions
Okay.
in a leadership retreat because it really got people up out of their seats and moving around the room. And it was small enough. I think it was maybe 200 people at the most that you could do that. I mean, leadership retreats after that actually got to like 300 people. So it got really big. But yeah, that was amazing just to see the division or the groupings of people and how they define themselves and where they place themselves.
I'm learning that Omaha is reaching this legendary status.
Was it?
I mean, just from talking to Rachel about it, I feel like I've really missed out.
I do remember feeling bad about missing them as well. Like, there were years that I couldn't go, or years that, like, when Rhode Island didn't have the budget to bring everyone. Like, I think I tapped out one year because I wanted someone else to have that joy and that connectivity and that community. And I think it's still a need. The community part is still important, still relevant, still necessary, but I'm still like hoping that there is some kind of plug-in, some kind of, maybe not an association, not a nonprofit, but some separate entity from Adobe, Figma, whoever the massive players are in design software, that may change. Like, I remember a time before Adobe and before Figma. So if tools change and communities go where they want to, there could be some kind of separate thing, separate entity that is like, we are part of this thing. And it shows up on your site or your credentials or your LinkedIn or whatever, that is like, I want to associate with this thing and I'm part of this bigger thing and it's bigger than me and it'll outlast me in my career, but it doesn't have to be its own business. I don't know what that is yet, but yeah, these are thoughts that I have about where things are going, even though we want to focus on the past.
It was interesting. I'm in the middle of looking for new employment, and I had somebody review my resume. It was a recruiter and really knows nothing about design. Design is not his forte, but dressing up a resume is definitely his forte. But he got down to the AIGA part, and I haven't been a part of it since 2017. He goes, I debate on whether or not to leave that in there. I was like, no. I have to leave that in there. I can't, I understand that it's older, but to me, that means something.
Yeah.
And hopefully to somebody that could see this, it means something to them.
Agreed.
as well.
even if you were not in a leadership capacity, which sounds like you were, I think being part of a community that has been around for many, many, many decades is relevant to the right people who are going to hire you. Sidebar, I'm a designer in recruiting, would love to see your resume, can help you. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic.
It's not surprising to me that you are talking with a recruiter who's trying to help you with a design role and they're not coming from design. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because design recruiters, people who are recruiting for design roles should know a little bit more about design than not. So, yeah. Yeah.
The fact that I was a member of a larger community, something that was bigger than me, something that had roots in tradition and integrity, I think to me that was very validating and also made me feel like I was part of something just larger, an organization that had influence over how design was shaped in overall marketing, business, blah, blah, blah. Like it, the way that we are perceived is helped by being part of this organization.
100%. I feel like one of the biggest things that Rick Griffey, the former ED, used to do was education and advocacy. And not just within the design body, but outside, especially outside of the design body, to help business leaders and non-designers understand what design can do for their business and how to work with designers. That was more valuable than anything to our clients, to people who wanted to hire us, to people who didn't know what they needed. And now I think design is so embedded in so many organizations, possibly not in the right space or the right spot in the org chart. That's one of the other things that I'm working on in this business, is to help founders and founding teams get it right the first time, hire the designers that they need when they need to hire them, not just because they think they need someone with Figma skills to make stuff look pretty. There's so much of that education work still to be done, and there isn't this governing body, this external body that could own that conversation, that could be effective in that conversation. There are lots of other online learning communities. There are lots of other platforms to learn from, and to learn from people, whether they're peers or mentors or potential mentors. I love what ADP List has done. I love online learning platforms like Even and Masterclass and Coursera and Skillshare and all the ones that have been around for a while. But there isn't one central plug-in type thing that I was mentioning earlier that could be useful for more than just graphic designers or product designers, for that matter. I think because AIGA missed the product design, the digital design boat, it became shockingly less relevant really quickly. So
It can be reversed. It can be reversed. The organization is still around. It still has a lot of supporters. It's
not too late.
It is not too late.
I feel like a different organization would be a good signal. Graphic arts is still part of the name. If you want to go way back, like, it shouldn't be American, it shouldn't be an institute, and it shouldn't be graphic arts.
It's just seen that.
If we want to do something that is a design organization, I think it needs to be wholly different. Clearly, I still have passion for it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here on a Sunday with you all. And someone to be the bigger tent that could be bigger than product design, digital design, graphic design, visual design, engineering, architecture. Like, I would be delighted if it was broader than design build. Maybe it's strategy, maybe it's communication. This is as far as I've taken this thought, but it could be bigger than what AIGA was capable of. I went to Config, the Figma conference for the first time this past year. 20,000 people in person. Having had that experience just once was like, holy shit! There's so much potential for community building in that kind of space. I may have the opportunity to do something about that this year, maybe. I'm I'm chatting with some friends at Figma about this, what we're talking about, design community kind of programming. We'll see, but like I would be delighted if there was some broader entity that could plug into all the things we've been talking about, plus education. I'm spitballing right now, but I'm hoping that there's a future for this kind of community thing. Yeah.
Erik and I talk about the need for community all the time, that it seems to have disappeared since the pandemic.
Yeah.
And that any ways that we can get it together, whether virtual, hybrid, or in person, is much needed right now. So
Yes. Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
For sure.
And it has to be hybrid. I think the fact that the pandemic popularized and normalized meeting people in our rectangles before you got together to meet them in person, that was the start of the hybrid world in a way bigger way than I think Zoom could have anticipated. So having this new organization be plug-in-able, where it doesn't matter if you're in person, and then there is like a Creative Mornings like advantage to being in person, and also some online component.
I love how much thought you put into this. This is fabulous.
Thank you. It feels
love
like little
this.
thought, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a foundation there. There's a structure there. I could see it. I could visualize what you're talking about. And it's, there's definitely seeds that you're planting. And I love that. And I wonder if you let me switch gears just a bit.
Let's do it.
There's a lot of learning.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people there. And then everybody goes to blow off steam.
Mm-hmm.
Is there one particular memory that you have that sticks out in your mind?
The post-program, and when I was at Yale, the post-learning, that Yale program that you're about to do, the post-learning social component was just as important as the structured learning component. Unstructured community building in a way that is very hard to reproduce virtually. They're all kind of a blur, frankly, whether it was like taking an Uber back to the hotel from a whatever because we were further afield than we thought, walking across the Lake Pontchartrain Bridge from New Orleans, like they all sort of like hold the same experience in my head of like silly good times. Silly good times. It's interesting though, when you started asking this question, the thing that came up for me was integration between all the things I learned, all the people I met, and then what happens when I get back to my desk, when I get back to that was always an opportunity that I wanted to bridge more. The integration of the things, the learnings, the people, the thank you cards, the thank you emails, the great to connect with you, like having enough time and space for that and feeding and watering that, whatever you're going to bring back to your practice. That was always a huge opportunity that could have been supported outside of, my own time and space for it. It took me a couple of retreats and conferences to learn that I needed to have that buffer, because otherwise it's just like back to normal, and that doesn't feel like you've done anything sustainable for yourself.
I can completely relate to that. I can remember coming back from these retreats, or even seeing people that I was just on retreat with at the airport, and we still didn't want the party to stop. I mean, the party in quotes, and it was the exchange of those ideas continuing, and then getting home, and then kind of coming down from that high, as it were, of being around so many like-minded individuals wanting the same things, and then integrating.
Yeah.
Right. Going back to the job where I'm the sole designer in a 200-person company, and I don't have anybody to talk to about this.
Yeah. For a while, I'm just remembering now. For a while, in Boston, we tried to solve that. We had a program called AFTA, AFTA. It was very casual. It was very low level. It was very like kind of spur of the moment, ad hoc, and it was designed for the people who wanted to talk about the thing that they had just learned at a bar or restaurant afterwards, the speaker would go with the board, the sponsor, whatever, to the restaurant, and that was part of the event. The AFTA series was possibly my attempt to be more inclusive. There was that kind of bridge to
Sure.
like continue the conversation and continue socializing and like unpack what you just learned, dish about it, try and integrate it. What are you going to do next? It was the next steps in conversation. So that was a thing. That was a thing that worked for a while. Yeah.
I love that.
I had forgotten about AFTA series, but it was fun. It was definitely a thing.
Here's something you might have forgotten about, Josh. How many pyramids have you been a part of?
I'm going to say too many. Where did they start? How?
Oh gosh. First it starts with a cheer and then it goes into a tier. People are drunk and saying, we're at a bowling alley. You know, it'd be really cool to do in our lane? Build a pyramid.
Yeah, that was so great. That was such a fun and weird, randomly participatory thing. Yes, alcohol had to be involved to feel like you could do it, to feel like you could just stand there or squat there and be climbed on.
Okay, so my last question for you, Josh, is basically, how did what you learn in leadership throughout AIGA, your experience, influence your career and what you're working on now?
Beautiful question. Many of the years of conferences, leadership retreats, phone calls, many of the folks that I met along the way have become collaborators and friends. Randy Hunt is one person that comes to mind. He was incoming in Orlando. I was incoming in Providence or Rhode Island, basically. We were both VPs of the chapters at the time, and I remember meeting him in this special meeting for incoming presidents. And we were both vibing. We were both like finishing each other's sentences, and I was like, "You're super cool," and he's like, "You're super cool," and I was like, "Oh, start," and he's like, "Oh, start." So we became friends, and it was very instant. This was St. Louis in 2004, maybe. Hold on, I have that data. Looking it up. Yep, 2004. I was right. And we became friends first. We became colleagues, and then he reached out a yearish, 2 years later, and he said, "I think I'm struggling with where I'm working. I don't know if it's for me. What are you working on?" Trusted confidant. Like, this is like trusted conversation after meeting once in person. And I said, "Would you like to come to Schwada Zion and work on a couple of projects?" And it was a very easy, natural conversation to have. It was very organic. I didn't go to the St. Louis retreat looking for a collaborator named Randy with Randy's skills. And he ended up hiring, he was one of the first freelancers that ever gave me a business card for his company. He hired me, I hired him. It was very reciprocal. It was very trusted and reciprocal from the get-go. The possibility of going to an event where you don't have any expectations about who you're going to meet, what the relationship will build into, knowing that possibility for collaboration, success beyond what you envisioned in the first place, even if you didn't envision anything, is always there. The possibility to network and become friendly with or hire or create a relationship with someone that grows and builds over the years, that is one thing that I think will always stick with me about the people that I've met through AIGA. I've met some of my heroes. Cliff Stoltz said, "Does anyone want to help me produce the Stefan Sagmeister lecture?" And I was like,
Oh, wow.
and I picked up Stefan from the airport, and we went record shopping, and we went to we went to the radio station. We talked with my friend, the DJ, about design for music. And then I kept him at his hotel. And then we had the lecture. And then we went out to dinner afterwards. You can't pay to spend a day with Stefan Sagmeister, but if you want to be involved in an organization that brings inspirational speakers to a community or multiple communities, that's the access that's the benefit of getting involved in something bigger than yourself that has that opportunity for you. So maybe there's 2 points here. One is the capacity to build relationships with trusted advisors who become really good friends and collaborators. And 2, the potential for what you give to come back to you tenfold. I guess if you're in the right place at the right time, but that feels a little bit exclusionary. A lot of it is like luck.
Yeah,
and
opportunity.
Sure.
And opportunity, but no one else raised their hand as quickly and as hard as I did for Cliff Stoltz's question about the Sagmeister event. I think it's those 2 things for me. It's like the potential for not expecting the things to come back to you, but the potential for those things to come back to you tenfold was part of why I was involved for so many decades, because those things just kept happening. And here we are, honestly.
And here we are. Yeah. I love that.
Oh, that's incredible. That's a great story.
And there's many more. There's so many stories like that. You're not the only one, Josh. There's a lot of us who've met our heroes, obviously, through leadership retreats or events or just volunteering. So I totally agree. I think being part of something larger, a community, really gives you that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, I'm super grateful yet again for your time to record these.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Cheers. Just want to say cheers to you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
the time.
Thank you both. Yeah.
Cheers.
All right. See you on the interwebs.
That was great.
That was awesome. That was fantastic. Good to meet you.
He was great. A wealth of knowledge. Yeah, a wealth of knowledge.
And fearless. I mean, just like, who wants to do this? Me.
I'm looking forward to many more stories
You too.
and just exploring them with you.